Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm going to tell the story of my family, and I'd like to preface it by talking in just a little bit about immigration, because my family came here for social and economic reasons from Italy, Sicily, Ireland, much like almost all of Americans. And I'm proud to say that I'm an Italian and Irish and Jewish and a lot of other things. I'm 57 sauce here. But I'd like to start by saying that, as you all know, this country was founded by Christopher Columbus, an Italian. And America was named for America's, what's his name? Yeah, I've got it written down here. America's Vespucci. They named the country after him. So we've got a good start in America. I've got some photographs here to show you. This was my grandfather. He came to this country from Laviano, Italy, at the age of 14. And they settled in Buffalo, New York, and then later down into Pennsylvania. And this is my great Uncle Montel. He was the one who started our photography business before the turn of the century. And Montel was an interesting character. He was very short, as most of people in my family are, and he was 5'3", and he was a well-known photographer around the country, but he settled in Augusta because this is where the wealthy people came during the winter, and that's what he liked to follow with the money. So Montel started our photography business, and my father, who grew up in Pittsburgh, in a little area that I had the opportunity to visit in 1941, and to my surprise, that nobody there spoke English. They all spoke Italian. They didn't have to speak English because the shoemaker, the baker, the bread maker, everybody spoke Italian. And so it was very difficult for me as a young kid to find out what my family was all about. My father didn't start speaking English until he started school. And but when he graduated from high school, his mother said to him, "What do you want to do now with your life?" And he said, "I'll think about it." She said, "No, you're not going to think about it." She put him on a train and sent him to Augusta, Georgia, July 1927, to learn how to be a photographer from her brother, his uncle. And there he is. And, that's Uncle Montel. Now, this is one of his iconic photographs. This is a picture that he made of Bob Jones and a fellow named George Washington Wilson. And a lot of people who've seen this photograph, it's been published a lot, think that George Washington Wilson was his caddy. He wasn't. He was his hunting companion. And I don't know whether you know this or not, but Bob Jones was not only an outstanding golfer, he was a tremendous shot, skeet shooter, and they even asked him to be in the Olympics, which he refused, but he loved to hunt. And down in Waynesboro, this was made in Waynesboro with his hunting friend, George Washington Wilson. This is my favorite photograph because I made it of my father. And I can tell you, I grew up in his dark room in the Campbell building on 8th Street. And as a little kid, he would stack up Coca-Cola crates, and I would stand on them and wash the sodium thiosulfate off of the photographs. And in those days, you had to wash them at least 100 times each photograph. So we'd pass them from one vat of water to another fresh vat of water and back and forth until they were done. Anyway, that's my dad. And this is when he arrived. He was 17 years old in 1927. And so when he arrived, I wish I had that photograph here, but he had on a beautiful double-breasted suit and a fedora. And you can imagine the heat in Augusta in July 1927. So he was pretty soaking wet. But his uncle said, "Okay, I'll give you started." He gave him a camera, a little fold-down camera, and a pocket full of film. He gave him about a 10-minute lesson on how to compose a shot and how to get people together. And he did what we, in those days, were called kidnapping. The Forest Hills Ricker resort had just opened in Augusta up on the hill, later known as the Oliver General Hospital during World War II. But it was a beautiful golf course there. Donald Ross designed golf course, outdoor swimming pool, indoor swimming pool, and a lot of fancy, wealthy people. So my father went there. He caught the trolley down on Broad Street, which took him up to where it turned around on Montesano and back down. And he'd get off at Montesano and walk to the Forest Hills. And what he would do is, if he saw a couple of people riding horses, he would say, "Oh, stay right there, let me get," he'd get a shot of them, or if they were playing croquet or swimming or just sunbathing or just a group, any way he could, he would pose them. Then he would go back that night to the lab, process the film. His uncle taught him how to do that right away, and print pictures. And he would say, "Well, there were 4 people in this group. I think I can sell all 4 for 25 cents a piece." So he would go back the next day with another pocket of film and try to sell his photographs. And I have a little something I want to show you. You see this? I think that was a Duesenberg. There was a fella who came up every morning, and my father would save that parking place for him because he would use that as a background to pose people. So he stayed in front of the Duesenberg, you know. And then he had another place, which is right here on the steps of the Forest Hills, which is beautiful and curved, and he would pose people there. And so he did that for a number of years. And as a matter of fact, that was the genesis of our business with the National. He met Bobby Jones because Bobby used to come down and play the Forest Hills a good bit. And in the year of his Grand Slam, 1930, the Southeastern Open was played alternatively between the 2 courses, Augusta Country Club and the Forest Hills. And my father was there shooting pictures, and by that time Bob Jones doing pretty well. But he liked the way my father worked. My father didn't take a lot of time to pose people or to shoot the picture, and he only shot once, and that was it. So when he and Cliff Roberts found the Fruitlands Nursery available and decided they were going to build their golf course there, Bob wrote my father a letter and asked him if he would consent to be their club photographer, which he did. No money involved, of course, but you got to meet a lot of people and do a lot of kidnapping, you know. So anyway, he became the first club photographer. Let me see. This is a photograph I made, I think, in 1953 or 54, because my father is kneeling down on the ground with the other photographers while he's shooting a picture of Eisenhower teeing off. I was making a picture of the whole scene there. It's a wonder that the president didn't hit me with a golf ball. Anyway, I got out of the front. And there's another portrait that I made of my dad. Oh, now this is in my book. And by the way, my book is for sale here at the museum if anybody's interested. A little plug. But I made sure this is the. And I like to tell all the ladies that you'll like the book. There's a photograph of me semi-nude. I was 6 years old, and my father had a reason to go out to the National, and he took me by my little hand, and he said, "Come on, ride with me." And he took me out, and while we were there, he introduced me to Bobby Jones. And by the way, I don't use the term Bobby too much because Mr. Jones didn't like to be called Bobby Jones. He liked to call Bob Jones and Mr. Jones, or Bob Jones, mainly. And that's how he signed his name. So I always referred to him as Bob Jones or Mr. Jones. When I met him, I can't remember, I can't that far back, what exactly he said to me. I do remember him kneeling down to get onto my level, and he asked if I would like to learn how to play golf. And I said, "Yes, sir." So he went and got me a golf club, one of his own, and he gave it to me. And during the ensuing years, I would hit rocks or dirt clogs or whatever because I didn't have a golf ball. So, but anyway, later I had a number of opportunities to meet with Bob Jones, and he gave me a number of lessons as I was growing up. And so this is the first photograph that I made in 1948 that was published. And it was a kind of a fluke. My father, in 34, 35, in all of the years, he would get all of the contestants together to make a group shot. Well, you couldn't do that today. All of them are, doing something else. But in those days, they got Mr. Roberts and Bob Jones said, we're going to make a group shot, get together. And this is 1948. And I was holding my father's camera while he was getting everybody together and getting them lined up. So I decided, what the heck, I'll just make a picture myself. So I made this, and you can see they're not looking at me. They're looking at my father, who is in front of them. But anyway, apparently the Augusta Herald liked my photograph better than the one from the front, and they published this one. And by the way, my father worked for the Augusta Herald. That one of his jobs was to do the photography for the paper. And what's amazing to me is if you go back and look in the archives of the Augusta Herald, and even the Augusta Chronicle, back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, you will see that they ran every day 20, 30, even 40 photographs of local people, local events in those days. Today, you're lucky if you see 2 pictures. And they have a staff, I think, of about 4 photographers. In those days, it was just one photographer for the Chronicle. That was Lewis Harris, and my father was for the Herald, and they were always good friends, and even as. But the one that I have hanging in my studio is when David Eisenhower and Julie Nixon, they were married, came down to visit her for a few days, and she called me. She said, very excited, and she said, anywhere you want to shoot it is fine. And I looked around in the Mamie's cabin. I didn't see a background I wanted. I said, okay, everybody come with me. And I marched them across the lawn to the clubhouse. And in the trophy room, the dining room, hangs a portrait of General Eisenhower, Bobby Jones, and Clifford Roberts. And so I posed the 3 of them with Ike looking down on them. So it's a great picture. I love the picture. And she not only got one for me, ordered one for me, but she ordered one for Richard Nixon. She ordered one for Julie and David, and one for herself. The postman came to my office one day and he said, man, you're in high cotton. I said, how's that? He said, well, I've got here these letters, one from the White House, one from Pennsylvania from Mrs. Eisenhower, and one from David and Julie, and the names on it. I said, well, that's nice. And I love those letters. Probably one day. Before I tell that story, I've got to tell you that Mr. Roberts had an affectation of his speech. He, a little different, he would say to me, Frank, and he would wait until he had the precise word he wanted to say. That's how he was, writing or speaking. And never will forget one day, the phone rang at our house, and my wife Jackie, who was sitting right there, picked it up, and she said, hello? Hello? Who is this? Hello? Slammed the phone down. I said, what was that? She said, I think it was a sex deviant. I said, why? What did he say? She said, that was Mr. Roberts. Anyway, he called me and he said, Frank, come have dinner with me tonight. I want to talk to you. So, of course, we went up and had dinner with him. And he said that a number of the boys, that meant the members, knew that his 80th birthday, this was May of 1977, I believe. He was turning 80 that May. And they wanted to have a birthday party. And he said, have you got any ideas? And I said, well, Mr. Roberts, let me think about it. So I thought about it, and the next day I called him and we met again, and I said, look, what I was thinking is that possibly we can have a nice cocktail party in the backgrounds, and we put up a big screen, and I can show some of the very early photographs that my father made of the jamboree. You know, that's when the members get together and have a contest. And some of the pictures of the members doing crazy things. So he said, and I said, I brought with me a box of of these old photographs. Very well, let's look at them. So it was really a wonderful evening because every photograph I handed to him, he would tell me a story. And I mean, some of them were really wild, crazy stories. In fact, there was you would have to know who O.B. Keeler was. O.B. Keeler was a great sports writer, and he wrote the book on Bobby Jones, traveled with him, documented his whole life. And so here's the picture was a gentleman with a nice striped suit on, spectacles, nice hat, sitting in a wheelbarrow with this black gentleman pushing him. And I said, "What is that, Mr. Roberts?" And he started laughing, and he said, "Frank," he said, "O.B. liked to tip the bottle a little too much." And he said one time he fell down the stairs onto 3 of our members and damn near killed them. And he said, so we figured the best way for him to travel around while he's here at on grounds was to provide him with this transportation. He said, that's what that's about. So then I'd hand him another photograph and he would laugh and tell me. Now then I came to one photograph and I handed it to him and he looked at it and I could see the scorn on his face, and he said, "Get rid of this photograph, burn it, and burn the negative." Wow. I said, "Why?" And he said, "It never happened." What it was, in 1937 and 1938, the U.S. Seniors Open Championship was held at the Augusta National. And Mr. Roberts says there's no other tournament that's been played here except the Masters. So get rid of all this. Well, it was Jock Hutchison won the first one in 1937, and Freddie McLeod, his partner, won one in 38. And as you may remember, those were the 2 official starters for the Masters tournament for many years. And of course I did not burn the negative, and I did not throw or tear up the picture, and that's what gave me the impetus to write my own book so I could tell more of the story and the history of Augusta, and of course that picture is in my book. You can buy it right here. So that's the book that we did. I did this with him, and we worked for about a year and a half, and so he got the book. It's the story of the Augusta National Golf Club. My book is called The Augusta National and the Masters, a Photographer's Scrapbook. It's a little different. This is just, I had to throw this in here because this is one of the great perks of being the club photographer for many years. I got to play the course just about any time. That's my brother Tony, my older brother, behind me. We were out playing golf one day. So I said to Nancy, got it. Now this is my brother, younger brother Paul. He came out of Vietnam, came back home from Vietnam with not deciding what he wanted to do. And so I persuaded him to come work with me at the studio, and he worked for years at the Augusta National, and he did a lot of really good photographs for me, and he worked and finally took over our color lab and did that until he found something better to do. But anyway, that's my brother, younger brother Paul. Now, this is my son Edward sitting right here. He was far too bright to follow me in the photography business, but during high school and college, he would come and work for me, and he's an excellent photographer, but a better pilot. He became a pilot very young in his life and flew fighters in Desert Storm, and then came out of Desert Storm and went straight to Delta Airlines, and he just retired last year after, I don't know how many years, but he was 65 and he couldn't fly anymore for Delta. And this is the last one that I'm going to show you. Couldn't leave this out because if you look, let's see if I can do this. Right there, that's my wife Jackie, and she's right here. And the reason she's in this because she's not only part of our family, but when I had my heart attack back in 1981, I was really not able to get out, carry the equipment, and shoot stuff on the course. I only did stuff in the clubhouse and what have you. So this is at the Ryder Cup at, I believe it's at the Kiowa, and she trudged around, and the whole time I was sitting with Bert Harbin, drinking beer in the tent, and Jackie came in all hot and sweaty, and I said, "How is it going?" She said, "It is really tough. You're walking in sand all day." And I said, "Jackie, be sure you make some great photographs because my reputation is..." She didn't like that at all, I can tell you. But anyway, that's the story of my family coming here to America. And I wanted to say this, if you bear with me for just one more second. My grandfather on my mother's side was Irish, John Coghlan Ramsey, and he lived right behind the Sacred Heart. And I remember in those days he used to tell me, he would take us walking, and he would say, "This is the melting pot, as it were, of the immigrants of Augusta." If you can remember, right behind on Ellis Street, there was a Jewish family, the Dolinskis. There was an Irish family. There was the Vignati family. And the Mark Walters lived there. German family. So there you had all of the different ethnicities, and they all lived there. But I want to say that because I came here and heard Tom Casello speak, and he was wonderful. But we grew up with the Casello family, early Italians, Leonard Damiano and Frank Damiano, who took over the business there on 9th Street. The Vignatis, the Finnesees, of course, everybody remembers the Finnesees, Mrs. Finnezee on the Herald, Augusta Herald, and Manganellis, the Paneros. I know I'm old, but does anybody remember Panero's Fish Market at 13th and Broad? No, I'm sure you don't. But anyway, he came here from Sicily, and he had a daughter who became like my daughter, became an opera singer, and a son who became a concert violinist. All of them did well. And then, of course, you know, the Chinese, we had the second largest Chinese population per capita in the United States at one time, because when they were building the canal and widening it, they couldn't get, the Irish had just come over 1840s, late 1840s, because of the potato famine. And, but the Irish really didn't enjoy getting out in the hot sun, digging soil for the expansion of the canal. So one of our leaders here in Augusta decided, well, look, the best workers in the world were the Chinese. He said, they are building the Transcontinental Railroad. In fact, they were just finishing it. So our father's leaders in Augusta went out there to Oklahoma, I believe. Nancy would know better. And they brought back to Augusta with them 200 Chinese families, because the Chinese wouldn't come without their wives and children. So they came back, and at that time, and I remember doing, oh golly, in the late 30s and early 40s, we had something like 42 Chinese restaurants in Augusta. And we still have quite a few, but most of those were Cantonese Chinese. And of course, we had the African American population who were brought here under different circumstances, and they've contributed greatly to our growth at Augusta. And the Polish, but then the Jewish family, as I say, my great-grandmother was French Jew. She came here with her family and buried in the old part of Magnolia Cemetery. Her name was Simonette. And so then I mentioned the Dolinskis, the Savoloskis. There's a great picture hanging around Augusta of the Savoloski family standing in front of their shoe store, shoe repair store on Upper Broad Street. Great picture. The Sluskis, Bo Slusky, and the Goldbergs, the Schwartzes, the Silvers, and the Rubins, of course. I see Milton's here tonight, and I told him that Paul and Charlie Rubin, the two brothers who started Rubin's, when I was a kid, I loved nice clothes, but I had to buy them myself, and so I used to go to Rubin's and pick out, and Paul and Charlie would say, pick out what you want, it's no problem, just take it, wear it, pay them 50 cents a week. So I paid 50 cents a week to Rubin's half my life. Anyway, but the Germans, the Mark Walters, Clausens, and my great-uncle made pictures of the Schützenplatz. That's up on Walton Way, where it is now Tubman High School. But most people think of Germans in Augusta, they think of the Hildebrands because of going to get a sandwich at Hildebrands. But the Markwalters, Theo Markwalter and his 3 sons are the ones who carved the Confederate monument that's on Broad Street. So all of these people contributed so much to Augusta. And thank God for immigrants. And I can tell you right now that we've got a lot of Mexicans, and they're doing all the work. They're picking the vegetables, they're picking the grapes, they're building homes. My brother Paul is in building right now, and his whole crew is all from Mexico. And I've got my grandson just married a Mexican girl. So we've got now adding to our 57 varieties. Anyway, I have to mention my 2 little great-grandchildren. And they celebrate Hanukkah now, and they like the menorah, but they do love Christmas presents. Anyway, thank you so much for your indulgence, and hope you enjoyed it, and I enjoyed being with you. Thank you so much. My great-grandfather, he arrived here in the 1860s and settled in Buffalo, New York, and then came to Blairsville, Pennsylvania. And my grandfather actually was born in Italy, he and his sister, but my great-grandfather came here and worked in the coal mines of Pennsylvania for a year and a day. That's in servitude. And then got the money that was saved up, and he went back to Italy and brought his wife and his 2 children to America. My grandfather, as I said, was 14 years old when he came in. His sister was just a few years younger. The Jamboree was held 2 weeks prior to the Masters every year. It had been going on since the inception of the membership. And Mr. Roberts called me one day and he said, "Frank, can you think of something we could do to liven it up, because it was going downhill and less members were showing up each year." And I said, well, at the time I was making television commercials and movies and a little business that I had, and to promote that, I said, sure, why don't we do a movie? And I said I could shoot it on Thursday, Friday. Jamboree was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And the awards night was Saturday night. I said, I can shoot Thursday, Friday, and half-day Saturday. We can edit everything and then have it ready to show at the awards paper on Saturday night. And he said, excellent, let's do it. So the first one we shot in black and white, no music, no sound, but it was a great hit. So we went from there, and over the years went in color, sound, and so forth. But one of the great skits, I had all the members to do, I'd have a skit for them to do, was Phil Wall, who's the manager of the Augusta National, called me one day and said, I just had a great idea. What is it? He said, Frank, he said, we're going to shoot this year, Mr. Roberts' part will be walking on water. And I said, how are we going to accomplish that? And he said, well, I had this idea. We could drain the water out of number 16 and build a Bailey Bridge about 35, 36 inches wide, and then fill it back up with water so that it covers a bridge by about a half an inch. And it was really incredible, because when I took my film crew down there to look, if you moved at a certain angle, you couldn't see the bridge at all. And so I said, okay, this is where we're going to shoot from. And I said, here's how we're going to do it. So fine, I gave them instructions. And I jumped in the golf cart and I went up to the headquarters and got Mr. Roberts. I said, Mr. Roberts, it's time for your part in the film. Said, very well. So he got in the cart, and as we were driving down to 16, he said, Frank, what does my part consist of? And I said, well, Mr. Roberts, I'm going to take you down to 16. I've got your clubs and your caddy there and the film crew. And I said, what I want you to do is to hit the ball, and we're going to make it go into the hole. And I said, and then I want you to step out and walk across the water. And he said, Frank, doesn't that have some kind of religious connotation? And I said, yes, sir, it does. But you know what? A lot of the people here think you can walk on water. We're going to prove to them that you can. But what happened, actually, was we get down there, and he got his club. His caddy was holding his clubs. And from his view, he could see the bridge. So he could see it. So he hit a great shot onto 16 and handed his 7-iron or whatever it was to his caddy. And he started walking out. And we were playing the music. I can't just, oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. So he's walking across and, oh, this is going great. And all of a sudden, without anyone knowing it, he stops. And he turns to his caddy and he says, come on. His caddy said, no, sir. Mr. Roberts looks at him and said, come on. Yes, sir. So the caddy didn't see or understand what the bridge was. Mr. Roberts is standing there and he starts in the water and he starts going down and he holds the clubs over his head. And I told him, keep rolling, until he finally starts to go under. And one of our crew had to jump in and grab the clubs and pull him out and save his life. So we cut the film right there as Mr. Roberts is looking down at him as he's sinking into the water at 16. And we put a little sign we injected into the film that said, "Oh, ye of little faith." And that was not only a big hit with the membership, but they later used it, CBS used it on a film about Bob Jones entitled "The Lengthening Shadow of a Man." They talked about the club and all, and they used that bit in there. And but we had a lot of interesting films over the years. Even people had Jay Johnson. I don't know if any of you remember Jay Johnson. He was a local attorney. He was a member. We had him dressed up as Superman and had him through green screen background fly over the national land. And then Charlie Yates, who was a wonderful member, one of the early founders, and he was also winner of the British Amateur Championship. He came to me and he said, Frank, if you ever do another Superman scene, I'd like to do one. Well, sure, of course you can be Superman if you want to. So the next year we got the Superman outfit and we dressed Mr. Yates, and he's about like I am now. He was getting old. And so he said, now what am I to do? I said, well, first of all, you're going to, in your regular clothes, in your green jacket, you come into, there used to be a phone booth right at the front door, right to the left of the front door. I said, you go into the phone booth, then we're going to cut right there. And then you change into the Superman outfit, and then you come out, and then I'll have you fly across the court. He said, oh, Frank, this is great. So he walks in, we're filming, he walks into the phone booth, we cut, he changes his clothes, puts on the Superman outfit, and then I said, when I give you the signal, you come out and like you're going to fly, and that's when we're going to put the green screen in and get you flying. But as it happened, Paul Boulos was changing the carpet at the National at the time, and he had been working on it. So Mr. Yates comes out, flying out of there, and he trips on the damn carpet and rolls over. I mean, it was terrible. And he said, we were going to shoot that over. I said, no, this is too great. We're going to have that. Anyway, I could go on for hours, but I know you've got to do something better than this today. So
she's asking what year was the Walking on Water for?
Let me just think for a second. I can't remember a lot. It had to be in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
That's when we started the films, and it was probably the 4th or 5th film that we shot. That Mr. Roberts was Walking on Water, and we continued to this day. Whoever took my place, I know Barry Koenig succeeded me as club photographer, but he had worked for me out there for 5 years, and then he stayed for another 25. So I don't know who's there now, but I know they're still making the film.
Are there any other questions?
Anybody have a question?
Let me make a statement real quick. We are honored to have a lot of Frank's collections here, your photography here, Montel's photography's here, your dad. We don't have all, but we have samples of all of it. And we are opening the golf galleries today because you have a lot of your collections in there. that golf gallery couldn't have happened, the golf exhibit, without my mentor.
And not only that, they are available to everybody of the public for a slight fee. And the slight fee does not come to me, it comes to help support this wonderful organization, the Augusta Museum of History. So if you want to see some early pictures like the one I told you about, the Savolosky family, or any of those kind of things, they're available here at the museum, along with my book.